Welcome to the Private Practice Pro podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping therapists cultivate success. Here's your host, Kelley Stevens.
This podcast is sponsored by Simple Practice. I've been using Simple Practice since 2016, which has helped me run a smooth and profitable private practice over the years. It has simplified everything from scheduling to billing, giving me a better balance between the work I'm so passionate about and the family time I'm not willing to miss out on. Check out the episode notes to get a free 2-month trial of Simple Practice, my preferred all-in-one HIPAA-compliant solution. Welcome back to the Private Practice Pro podcast. Jessie, I am so excited to have you here for a variety of reasons. So can you introduce yourself, tell everyone who's listening where you're sitting, because you have multiple locations, the feelings for it. We'll tease that because we're going to talk about it later. And well, I know you're not there right now, but where you're sitting, what you specialize in, just tell us who you are.
Great. Hi.
Hi.
I'm jesseproia. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm sitting right now in Denver, Colorado, where I currently live. But I practice in all over Colorado, all over California, and all over Vermont through telehealth. And so each state I work in has been a home of mine. I've been living in Denver for about 3 years. I lived in LA for like almost 10. And I grew up in Vermont. And so these are all places that are like a home and have family and found family in. So I love working with clients that live in those states. So I travel to those states often, and it allows me like this really great sustainability to work and be, and also still be reflective of the population I work with.
Yeah.
And I specialize with LGBTQ plus folks. It's a passion of mine to work in my community. I identify as a queer man.
Yeah.
And I've dedicated about 10 years to LGBTQ plus specific mental health. And that doesn't limit me from working with people who identify outside of our community, because just by nature of working from a queer or LGBTQ plus lens, I have an outside perspective on a lot of issues. And the way I work deconstructs like just the default settings of the way we exist in society, which can be really helpful with people who identify as cis, heterosexual, and are struggling with cultural norms or social expectations.
I love it. I couldn't have said it better myself. Too bad we're on a podcast, because anyone who's watching, I guess if somebody watched on YouTube, you have these glasses on that are, your look right now is great. I was saying off camera, my hair is wet. I ran in from kid morning, and you have a really, I love the hat. I love your glasses. So
thanks.
Which I know doesn't relate to anything we just talked about. It's my own ADHD. I'm looking at your glasses.
I'm obsessed with these glasses. I have them in all different colors.
Yeah, they're so good. I'm going glass shopping tomorrow. It's probably why I'm noticing I need new glasses.
They're from a company in particular online who are like, let's do a deal.
Tell me. Well, let's shout them out, because they should do a deal, because they look great.
They're dragging their feet, so I don't know if I should.
Tease it. Let's.
Okay. The company is amazing. They're called Zeelool. Zeeelool.
We'll link it. We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah. And these are called Brandons. And
okay. We're going to talk off camera. I was like, I need a statement glasses. I feel like, Anyway, okay. We're way off topic. So first of all, I didn't know you lived in LA where in LA did you live?
I always lived in the same area in Hollywood, East Hollywood.
Okay, I lived in LA for 10 years too.
Where about?
So I lived the majority of it in Santa Monica, and then a little bit in Brentwood at the end. And then I moved way out to Claremont for 2 years, which is the last city in LA. I don't even know if people, technically Inland Empire. But I think of even now, I've lived in Santa Barbara for, since 2019. And even now, I grew up in Santa Barbara, but I still think of LA as my home, kind of.
I love LA.
I love LA too.
I actually moved there because before I was a therapist, I was an artist.
Yeah.
And I went to art school and I graduated in the recession, and I just like could never get traction with sustainable living. And so I married my husband when marriage equality passed in 2011, and we just bounced. We moved to LA because it was affordable back then.
Yeah.
And fell in love with it and really like grew together. And so LA to me is just like this very loving city.
Yeah.
Because I really created my adult life and my family there.
I get that. I lived there in my 20s, so I totally get that. And I feel like LA also gets a bad rap in some ways. Like people love to hate on LA, and I'm like, you haven't actually lived in LA if you hate on it. And then you went to grad school in Santa Barbara, right?
I did. Yeah, I did.
So,
I went to Pacifica Graduate Institute, which is a low residency program. So I was in LA the whole time.
Yeah.
But I would go up there for like residential weekends.
That's like one of the few programs that I know that does that. So you would go one weekend a month, or how would that work?
Yeah, once a month for 3 days, 3 classes. Yeah. So it was like between 8 and 12-hour classes a day.
Wow.
So it was like a week of a full caseload of, or a full course load crammed into in person, and then doing coursework in between too, like independent research and writing and clinical.
Yeah, I feel like it's a unique program too for people who maybe are already in a different profession and want to stay working in their full-time job. Like they're, I think it can be a good thing. We can link it in the show notes for the program. But
yeah, it's a great program. They really come at it from a depth psychological perspective where like you are your instrument, so they tune you. And it's really personally and emotionally, interpersonally really hard.
Yeah.
But I felt very equipped when I left the program.
Well, and it's interesting. So I went to Pepperdine, which I would say tends to be pretty CBT focused. And then I moved to Santa Barbara. And in LA, in like West LA, I felt like it was like a lot of CBT all the time. And, I think I tend to be a little more family system, CBT, like solution focused kind of person. And then I moved to Santa Barbara, and because Pacifica is here, it's like so many depth therapists, and I'm always like, well, I don't know if I fit super well, but it's been a nice balance on working with cases with different colleagues, and we have different strengths, and my husband works here too and is a psychiatrist. So I've just noticed in Santa Barbara in general, we have a lot of depth therapists for that reason. Which is great.
Yeah, totally. I joke about it. It's like it's perched up in the mountain, like in between the mountain and the ocean. And it's like the school it's like it's going to a retreat when you go.
Oh, yeah, it's
and
beautiful.
Wind chimes everywhere. So I actually like call it the Wind Chimes Academy. Like
it is beautiful. I mean, God, it's a beautiful place. So and a good program. So anyway, we could probably go on for a long time about that. But so then you were living in LA and you went to Pacifica, and then did you do your practicum in LA or how did that work?
Well, I did. Yeah. I was a big mission of my work, even before I went to grad school, was to like get in at the Los Angeles LGBT Center.
Yeah. I'm really familiar. Yeah.
I had some really incredible mentorship from Dr. Susan Holt there.
Yeah.
And Steve for 5 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And did like really cut my teeth working in my population, like in crisis counseling, domestic violence, sexual assault recovery, a lot of really cool grants from the Department of Justice for victim of crime services.
They have some teen programs too, right? For teens who or do they not? I could be mistaken. Yeah.
I think it's still called LifeWorks.
Yeah.
And but that's in a separate campus than general mental health. Right.
Wow. Okay. So you were there for a while, and then when did you leave? Where was your next job?
Let's see. So I transitioned from an overlap. I started a really small, tiny private practice.
Yeah.
Just to get my feet wet. It was in this like adorable office that was actually like, I swear it was just a large closet. And
I've had one of those. I had no windows for a while.
It was cute. Like I loved it. It was like a little nest, and I was really into it. And so I just like, that's how I just gained confidence. And then I slowly transitioned to working in a group private practice called the Wellness Arts Collective in Eagle Rock, which is really a great, still there, really incredible resource for diverse populations and
awesome. We'll link it.
Work.
Yeah.
So I got more confident in private practice and within some of the same principles of community mental health. And then that evolved into my departure from LA, and I left the Wellness Arts Collective because it was time to move and be closer to family.
Yeah. And then you moved to Vermont, or where did you move?
Colorado.
And then, okay, so then where does Vermont fit in? You grew up in Vermont, but you still spend time, or how? And there's a feelings for it. We need to talk about the feelings for it. I've teased it too many times. So tell us where Vermont fits in, and then tell us about the feelings for it.
Yeah. I grew up in this really awesome part of Vermont called the Northeast Kingdom. It's actually called that too. It's a tri-county region, the northeast corner of the state on the border of Quebec and New Hampshire.
Okay.
Excuse me. And it's so it's the most rural part of the state.
Yeah. And
my family's been there for, I think we're 6 generations now.
Wow.
And it's like my grounding spot.
6 generations. Okay, wait. We need to go back to 6 generations. Like that means 1900. I mean, that means a long time.
Yeah.
Great. Wow. Okay. Just had to take that all in. Okay, so keep going.
And so I love it there. And when I'm there, I feel incredibly grounded. It's sort of I think you were asking me earlier about burnout, and that's really where I go to get grounded and to recover when I feel burnt out. My family's been in Vermont for so many generations, and I was raised there. But with it being so remote and rural in the 90s and early 2000s, it was not a comfortable space to be LGBTQ. And I never got that calling to go to college far away. So, it's I go back every 3 months, and I work there. I work from there for a week or two at a time when I'm there. And I grew up in a log cabin with no privacy. And my parents still are there. So
no way, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I can't work in my parents' house.
Yeah.
But you can actually talk through the walls and through the floors. So I would rent a hotel room, and it was just getting ridiculous. So I looked into one of the farm supply stores, and they had sheds.
A tough shed?
Made in the area, but a tough shed, but made in Vermont.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law is a carpenter, and he just we worked on it last summer, where we just got this cool shed, and we tricked it out, insulated it, put up walls, and when I'm in it, I could be anywhere. It looks like just a generic therapy office with electricity, and it's my privacy shed for working.
Seriously? Okay, so this is I think right around the time that I really started connecting with your content was the frickin' feelings for the shed. I feel I have some treehouse stuff. I have 2 little playhouses for my kids. I always wanted a treehouse as a kid. I never had one. I have some I want these little spaces. And so you were posting content about feelings for it and decorating it and making it feel really home. And I just it. That inner child part of me was I want that. I'm just, I think I want one in my house.
Yeah. That inner child energy. I get giddy when I go back.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
my mom's really into it too. She's thinking about getting one for herself, a total she shed, somewhere else on the property.
She should. I want a she shed. And you should send us some pictures, and on the YouTube video, we'll put them up. And then that way people can see them. If you're listening to the podcast, you should go find them on YouTube or on Instagram or whatever. But the feelings for. Okay, so then you're in Denver most of the time. And are you in person, or are you fully virtual, or how do you do it?
Yeah, both. Hybrid.
Yeah.
I have 2 days a week that I do in person. And the rest is virtual. And I even, when I'm in Vermont, if it's convenient to meet a client in person, I will. And same thing
Nice.
with color and California too. Like,
Yeah.
just if it's nice to see clients in person and to have that connection, and it's fun. So I'll rent a space to see clients in person too.
Oh, that's great. Well, and also, so my question is, maintaining licenses in all those places, do you find it tricky? That's a lot of continuing education.
It is. Thankfully, depending on the state, like California is the gold standard.
Yeah.
So a lot of continuing education that's done there will be accepted in like Vermont and Colorado.
Right.
So I kind of like default California, and then
interesting. Yeah.
all of that. But yeah, keeping track of renewals is not great. And I was paying pro tip, actually. I was paying separate insurance for each state. You only need one insurance plan. It covers all 3 states for me.
Oh,
so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So for anyone else, like, you can check with your specific state board or registry for keeping track of that. But for me, in the states I'm in, one insurance malpractice insurance policy works.
That's great. Who do you use for your malpractice?
CPH.
Okay. Yeah, that's who I use too. I love them. Who does anyone use besides CPH?
Do you ever call and talk to them?
Yes. Well, and actually it was interesting because I use them. I love them. Everyone I know has used them. And so I called them and I was like, hey, do you want to place an ad on this podcast or whatever? They're not because of legal malpractice things, they're not allowed to have ads or influencers or anything like that. But they have been so incredibly supportive, completely for free, of my brand. I'm on their website, they're so nice. And I'm like, I should be paying you to promote me. And they're like, no, we can't take any money, but we're happy to promote you. And I'm like, okay.
They love every time I had to call them, they're just really happy to chat.
Yeah, they're super, super. And even their Instagram page, I'm like, let's make it, let's help you grow a bigger font. And they're like, we're good. I mean, everybody uses them, I guess,
you know, someone's doing well or a company's doing well when they're like, no, we're good.
Yeah, that's true. One of my therapist friends who I love is in LA. I don't even think she has a website. And I'm always like, why don't you have a website? Why don't you have Instagram? Why? And she's just always full. She doesn't need it. And I'm like, okay, most of us are human and we do need to promote ourselves. Okay. That's, the reality. But every once in a while you meet those people who are just a golden fairy or whatever. And they don't need to promote themselves because people love them.
My analyst, he's always, his books are always closed. I'm so grateful I got in and I get to work with him because I love him. I'm not even gonna say his name. I love him so much.
Save him. That's what I do with my babysitter. I don't tell anyone her name because I'm like, I want all of her time. Yeah. She does not need any more business. She's amazing. I will fill all of her time. I will not tell you her name. Yeah.
Hey, therapists. Are you listening to the show and thinking, I really want to launch my own private practice, but I have no idea where to start? Make sure to check out Kelley's Private Practice Roadmap course. In the course, Kelley gives you the exact steps you need to open your own thriving practice. You can find the link below in the show notes.
Okay. So what I want to know is when you first, so you kind of went part-time into private practice and then jumped more into full-time.
Yeah.
I think. So what were you afraid? Were you nervous? Were you not nervous? Were you ready to go? What was that? What was the mindset for you?
It's really specific for me.
Tell me.
And layered.
Yeah.
It was because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was in this really just natural process of leaving the LGBT center and running and ending with the mentorship I was under with Dr. Holt. And and so I was I joined the Wellness Arts Collective and I was going to do my own little small office private practice as well.
Yeah.
To get confident, but then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And I just panicked because I'm the only one that went to college, let alone grad school in my family.
Yeah.
And my family owns this diner that's it's about the failed business. My whole family works in it. It's just it's an institution.
Yeah.
But I was so afraid that they had to close. I was so afraid that they would lose the business. So I was like, it's go mode. I got to work. And so that really pushed me. Like I rescinded my resignation, but then I also worked in private practice and like took on way too many clients, but to like stockpile cash in case my family needed it. And that pushed me into private practice. So I can't even really tell you what it was like, because I just like, it just was doing it. And then things mellowed once they reopened and they didn't actually need it. So I was able to buy a house.
It's so funny though, how often I hear people say something, not obviously this exact story, but something similar where like something shitty happened in their life. And then they were like, fuck it, I got to do it. Like I just have to do. And the same thing happened to me when I opened my practice in 2016. When I went full time into private practice in 2016, I was going through some personal stuff and I was like, I can no longer be working for someone else. I need like to really go and just do it and like make time and space for my relationships. And, I was working too much and like not paying attention to the people in my life that I cared about, essentially. It's the long and the short of it. And it's sometimes I think when your back is against the wall, you're like, I just have to do it. Like I have to make a change versus like, I always will tell people like, you don't do it the way I did it, where you're just like quitting your job one day and the next day you're going to open a private practice. Like the gradual thing is a good idea, but I'm always shocked how often people are kind of like, I just had to make it happen. So I did.
And looking back on it, I wish I would have done more supervision in private practice and had more, because I was so excited about the work I was doing at the LGBT center. Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to just stay here. Yeah. And I think it's so important to diversify. Yeah. Because you don't know where your career is going to take you. And all experience is good experience. Yeah. So I wish I would have done more to just really understand like the nuts and bolts of the business end and how to conceptualize it. Because I've been kind of like patchworking it as I go. Yeah.
I get that. I was lucky enough to do some of my pre-licensure in a practice. And it was like a second graduate program because it was just so helpful to be able to see the things that my bosses and supervisors struggled with, or like how they did their accounting and how they like all those things that we don't think about when we're just working for someone else, or like how do you run payroll, like all this stuff that we talk about at Private Practice Pro. I was lucky enough to do with an internship. So that was nice. I remember
that first year doing it on my own. I was so scared.
Oh, same.
Doing taxes, I was like, can you arrest me?
I know. I mean, I even knew how to do them and I was still scared. Like I had worked for someone. Both my parents are entrepreneurs. Like I knew that I had people I could ask about it. And I still didn't save enough the first year. Like didn't have 2 separate bank accounts. Like I made a lot of the mistakes that I knew I shouldn't have made and I still did them. I had friends who just forgot to save for taxes, in air quotes, if you're listening and not watching. Like, I'm like, you like forgot?
Like, that is like, I don't like paying taxes, but like, I like, because that was like my biggest fear.
Yeah. Like, you can't just forget. Like, the IRS doesn't forget. No. Anyway, okay, before we could go in a million directions, but you have done some writing for publications, and let's talk a little bit about that, because I haven't had anyone on the podcast yet that's necessarily written for magazines and that sort of thing. So can you tell me, first of all, like where you're writing for now, how that's working, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got into it.
Yeah, so I work for this amazing magazine that's in print and online called Outfront Magazine, and it's an incredible resource. Everyone needs to read it or like follow it with the newsletter, because it's what's really awesome about like the Advocate and Outfront and Queerency is they speak on a national or coastal levels, whereas Outfront does speak on a national LGBTQ plus content, but also is Rockies and Central Plains specific. Yeah. So it's a really awesome way to get like a regional perspective on queer history, queer politics, social justice on that level. Yeah. And so it's just like really dope to be a part of. Yeah. And it's written in a way that is voices of people in the region. So you can get unique, informed perspectives with everyone who writes for it. And I'm I'm honored to be a part of the team.
That's amazing. Okay, so tell us, how did that evolve for you?
Actually, it was in response to feeling conflicted about leaving community mental health and LGBTQ community mental health, because I felt like that was really the root of like in-depth social justice work. But I also needed something more sustainable for me. So a way to balance like full fee, pro bono, sliding scale was also like, well, how do I get some of this information out?
Yeah, interesting.
And so I think of writing and the topics I write about and resources I share in my writing as that social justice dissemination of information from queer mental health perspective. That's been my motivation for writing for Outfront.
I love that. I mean, it's like another way to promote accessibility in your practice without necessarily sacrificing your financial wellness.
Yeah, because I know like I'm really impressed and inspired by how you manage your sliding scale with like asking people what they make per hour. And I'm not sure if you're still doing that, but that was something I remember. Yeah. That.
I mean, I can explain how we do it because I don't think we talked about it on the podcast, but right now I'm on maternity leave as you're listening to this. So I'm not seeing any clients right now, but when I'm full in private practice, which usually for me is like around 20 to 25 appointments a week, definitely been at more than that. And I like, it's too much. 25 is like, okay, I'm going to get like burnt out. 20 is like a good spot for me. But usually the way I do it is I keep 4 appointments a week. So sometimes that's more or less clients depending on the census, but I try to keep 4 slots a week for low fee clients. Now, I want to give a big caveat to this that my full fee is $250 an hour. So I'm not low priced, I guess, in my full fee. But for my lower fee clients, I charge them what they earn for 1 hour of work. So if they earn $15 an hour, they're going to pay me $15 for a session. So like we're working, like it's 1 hour because there are plenty of my clients that are making $250 an hour in their work and they're paying, and then I think it's a nice way to do it because it allows the client to like, they are earning a respectable income. They're like, and I'm honoring the fact that that is their income and that like they work hard for that, and then I don't because I have those slots all the time, I don't limit the number of sessions they can come in. Like they come as long as they decide they're going to come, but I just keep those 4 spots. Nice. And I think like what it forces me to do is to not like, I don't slide $20 off my fee or $30 off my fee. Like my full fee spots are full fee spots. And in general, I tell people like, if you are going to take a low fee spot, you have to be making at or below minimum wage. So it's not like, I have clients who are making $35 an hour and they're coming for a low fee spot. Now, granted, there's a huge need for that, but I'm kind of making the assumption with that if a client is coming in and they're getting paid minimum wage, they may or may not have health insurance. They might not have access to any other services. Whereas maybe some of my clients in a higher income bracket might have health insurance, might have the ability to like find someone who is a little bit lower fee. But everyone's different. I mean, it's certainly not answering, I see for us as therapists, like sometimes in our practices, we're trying to answer every systemic problem. And I like have realized like for me, there might be 1 or 2 issues that I can address, whether it's with my fee, whether it's like with what you're doing with creating more accessibility through putting free content out into the world, whatever it is. But as a solo individual person, I can't solve every problem with my practice. And that's hard because then, as therapists, I think we all feel like guilt or shame. I mean, we go through our own shit too about it,
I'm still ironing it out for myself. I have for my like benchmark of daily goal, weekly goal, monthly and annual goal financially, I have like an average that I always am balancing. Yeah. In terms of like full fee, same sliding scale. And then I also do like to have a handful of just fully pro bono. Yeah. But I also have like, hey, this is a commitment on my end. Yeah. You got me in the middle. Like I want you to show up. I want you to be ready. Right. This is only telehealth, like my in-person spots, and like, so that it's right. Reciprocal.
Everyone has a little skin in the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
I don't do biweekly because I'm like a really engaged therapist. And if like we do every other week and then miss one or however it goes, the whole session is just catching up.
Yeah.
So instead I offer 3 months on and 3 months off.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
That's a really nice way. Actually, I learned that from Community Mental Health was like, 3 months, do 3 months with a really targeted focus.
Right.
Take 3 months off, see what stuck and what didn't. Come back these 3 months to refocus and then take another. And over a year, say if you're in therapy for a year, it's the same financial commitment as every other week, but better results.
Oh my God. I've never thought to do this. That blew my mind. And also that just blew my mind in terms of being a therapy client. I feel like I'm the type of therapy client that would benefit from that. Like, interesting. Because sometimes I have a tendency to continue going to therapy because I'm like, oh, like, you know, this is what I do. Like, I don't know, versus like really focusing. I don't know, I have ADHD. We don't have to talk about all my shit.
Sure.
I'm a mess.
I also think breaks are great. Like breaks are great because you don't want to be dependent on your therapist.
Right.
You work long term. Like I have some clients I worked with like 5-7 years.
Yeah, same. And,
breaks are good because then you can really see what's sticking and building that autonomy and not being completely dependent on that weekly appointment. Yeah.
I just learned something that like blew my mind. I love it. Okay, so you're doing something. Did we cover how you initially got involved with writing for Outfriend? Did you approach them? How did that kind of work? Like, or let me put it this way. If you were giving advice to somebody who said, I wanted to get into writing for a publication, how maybe something local to their area, how would you suggest that they do it?
It's funny. I've been joking, because I'm like a very ambitious person, and I've been joking that I'm like pathologically ambitious, but I joked about that with my analyst in therapy last week, and he's like, "Well, it's not pathological because you're aware of it." I was like, "Oh."
I might have this same problem. Yeah.
And that like, so I'm just always looking for like different ways of engaging in community culture production, and like, so I think I was writing for a few other websites just to get information out about how to find LGBTQ plus therapists in Rocky and Central Plain region. Yeah. And like questions to ask that I just wanted to have people have access to. And then I was like, oh, I really like Outfront. I wonder if I could write for them. I just emailed and connected. So I think I just ask questions. I'm like, why not?
Oh, 100%. The best things in my life are typically opportunities that I've sought out rather than like waiting. And waiting never works.
I used to work for a circus company. I was a roustabout and artist in residence, and it was just
no way. That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you just gotta. I mean, I've had that experience with teaching. I've had that experience with jobs. Like sometimes you just have to be willing to put yourself out there and go get it. You know,
and be okay with rejection.
Yeah.
Which is
100%. Yeah. I mean, you gotta knock on a lot of doors. I've heard a lot of no's. Okay, Jessie. So first of all, you have kind of like a secret project in the works, which is exciting. And I want to have you on for a part 2. So Jessie, at the point where when you've been on this podcast, you're at like how many followers on Instagram right now?
10,500-ish.
Yeah, you're at 10,500-ish. You are writing for publications. You have a successful private practice. You are pathologically ambitious. So I think what we should kind of goal for is, in a year, maybe let's have you back on the podcast for a part 2. And I think number 1, you have kind of a secret project going on, which will probably be done by then. And number 2, like I just have a feeling like there's going to be a lot of cool shit happening. So we're going to have a part 2 in a year. That's our goal.
I would love to. I mean, I also just love talking with you. And
Me
so
too.
I'm
Same.
like, sure. Yeah.
We'll
easy.
just we'll be in our DMs. Like I'll be like, take me to the feelings for it. I want to see it and everything. So, all right, cool.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much, Jessie, for coming on today. We will put we've talked about so many things in this episode, so we're going to just link all of your information, your articles, we're going to link it all in the show notes for everyone
Awesome.
who has been here, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Ask Kelley Anything is just around the corner. But first, a word from our sponsor. Stay tuned for Kelley's response to your private practice questions.
Therapists, do you want more clients at your full cash rate? Mentaya is a platform that navigates out-of-network benefits for clients. They get clients on average 70% back on therapy by filing claims and chasing down insurance companies. They handle literally everything so that you can focus on what matters. Click the link in the show notes to learn more and get 1 month free using the code PRO. Welcome back to Ask Kelley Anything, where I answer your burning private practice questions. Let's get into today's question.
Hi, Kelley. My name is Jenny, and I had a question for you. I know that you hold an LMFT as well as do personal one-on-one coaching. I hold an LCPC, and I'm looking to branch into coaching as well. My question is, do the two entities need to be separated? Not only from a business perspective, but from a website and marketing perspective. From what I can tell, you have grown to two separate websites, and I'm just wondering the reasoning behind that, what some of the limitations of the licensure is. And I know that is specific to state, but just broadly, what would be your recommendation for practicing therapists who also want to do coaching? Can both be done at the same time, or do they have to be separate business models and entities? I appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a question, first of all, that I get all of the time. And this is a question that could be answered in a full course or a full podcast episode. And I will try to bring some guests on to talk about this. This is a big topic, but let me just give you my highlights on this. So first of all, I have to give you this big disclaimer that I am not a small business attorney, and I really recommend when you're setting up a coaching practice that you do consult with a small business attorney about how to set this up, and ideally with your tax professional too, right? Because there's going to be some tax implications. So there's your big caveat. That being said, from all of the research I have done about best business practice, and specifically in California where I'm located, but I would say I know a lot of people around the country doing this as well, I have gathered that it is the best practice to separate the two businesses. So for me, that's definitely the case in my business. I'm two separate S corps. And the reasoning behind that, kind of generally speaking, obviously there's a lot of nuance here, is to protect your therapy license. Because in your therapy business, you are a licensed professional. So any business you conduct under that business needs to be done in the scope of your license. Now, coaching does not need to be done in the scope of your license, and therefore it makes sense to keep them as two separate business entities. That being said, do some people do it other ways? Of course. But on this show, I try to always be talking about what I think the standard business practice should be. So number one, I would separate them out. Number two, there are plenty of coaches or plenty of therapists that do coaching, and I think it can be a really great thing to add on to your practice. As you know, I certainly have done that. For my specific business, I do business coaching, and then I do therapy separately. So I am not coaching potential therapy clients. The biggest thing I suggest to therapists who want to do coaching is to get very clear on what clinical issues need to be treated as a therapist and what clinical issues can be treated as a coach. Because technically, being a coach does not give you license to treat mental health diagnoses. You're not providing treatment, you're providing coaching, right? And so you need to have some pretty clear guidelines within your specific niche around what types of clients really are a good candidate for coaching. So what I suggest to therapists is that you don't just say, okay, well, if my client's out of state and my license isn't out of state, then I'm just going to provide them coaching. Because the reality is, if a client really needs therapy and you're providing them coaching, that can do more harm than good. And that's kind of like negligence because you're not providing them the care that they need. So I would actually sit down and really write out, what does a coaching client look like in my business versus what does a therapy client look like in my business? Then I would create a document that you give to clients and that says, here's what therapy is, here's what coaching is, here are the differences and the limitations with both, right? There's going to be differences in confidentiality. There's going to be differences in how you work in the room with people. There's going to be differences in the boundaries. And so you need to kind of come up with that structure for yourself and for your business and for your clients. That's where it gets tricky. You are also going to need coaching paperwork and totally separate paperwork for that business entity and a way of billing it. So it makes sense also to have the businesses as separate because you're going to be doing separate billing. So again, this could be a full episode for this podcast, and I'll try to get a guest on, but I hope that gets you started, and I'll see you next time.
Are you wondering how to promote and fill your private practice? Look no further. Kelley's comprehensive online course, Marketing for Therapists, will equip you with the essential marketing strategies to build a thriving six-figure therapy practice. Don't miss out on this opportunity for success. Check out the show notes to sign up.
If you would like to be featured on Ask Kelley Anything, I love getting listener questions from you guys. Anything about private practice goes. And the best way to do that is actually just to give me a call and leave me a question on my voicemail. So I'm going to tell you the phone number right now and make sure to write it down. Here it is, 805-243-8241. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.